would you reverse the cut in corporation tax?
But I'm telling you, Andrew, that our priority is
you're
not
telling me the question.
I am.
The
I'm
answer.
saying that the cuts in corporation tax, the cuts in inheritance tax, the cuts in capital gains tax.
But where was what's the cut in capital gains tax?
But what's really important, Andrew?
No, excuse me, I'm asking you a question. What's the cut in the capital gains tax?
They've cut the capital gains tax. They did that. They did that as part of the coalition government.
No, they raised the capital gains tax in the coalition government.
Well, what I'm saying, Andrew, and
what you're saying is wrong. They raised the capital gains tax to 28%.
What I'm saying is that they've given tax cuts to absolutely the richest in the country at the same time where they're in this country over the past. It is true. At the same time that you've told the people in this country over the last 6 years, we've got to cut our coffee. No, let me finish this point because you've interrupted me, and I want to make this point. It's really serious to people in this country that you've told people we've got to live within our means. We've got to have this austerity. We've got to cut. You've cut, and do you know what? Debt's rising, and the austerity. And now you're saying all of a sudden we can spend.
No, hold on.
And that's wrong because you're spending it.
You're just off now.
No,
let me bring you back to let me bring you back to the question.
The great tax debate. Are developers winning and citizens losing? Imagine waking up to news that the government, once again, has delayed a key tax designed to make our homes safer. Not because it isn't needed, not because the crisis of unsafe cladding has been resolved, but because the very developers responsible for the disaster have kicked up a fuss. Sound familiar? That's because it's happening right now. If you're already frustrated with how housing, taxation, and public services are being handled, you're not alone. In recent years, debates over corporation tax, inheritance tax, and capital gains tax have become a political football, kicked around by politicians who promise much but deliver little for ordinary people. Now, a fresh controversy over delayed developer Levi threatens to make things even worse. So, is the government protecting us, or is it just protecting the profits of big business? Let's break down what's really going on and why it should matter to you. Let's start with the basics. Taxes are the lifeblood of public services. They fund our NHS, our schools, our infrastructure, the very things that make society function. When the government cuts corporation tax, inheritance tax, and capital gains tax, they're essentially reducing the amount of money available for those vital services. The logic is simple. Less tax revenue means fewer resources for the things we all depend on. But here's where it gets complicated. Proponents of tax cuts argue that lower rates stimulate business investment, create jobs, and, eventually, lead to higher tax revenues as the economy grows. Critics point to the immediate losses in public funding and question whether those supposed long-term gains ever actually materialize. So when politicians are asked, point blank, would you reverse those tax cuts? The answer is rarely straightforward. Instead, we get evasions, discussions about priorities, and endless back and forth over who really benefits from these tax changes. The truth is, while the government quibbles over the details, the people who lose out are those who rely most on public services. Nowhere is this more obvious than in the recent furore over the so-called cladding levy. This tax, which was supposed to raise £3.4 billion to fix unsafe buildings, has been delayed until 2026 after a well-organized campaign by developers. The very same developers who profited from shoddy building practices in the first place. Think about that for a second. The government had a clear mandate: protect citizens from unsafe homes. Yet, when developers complained that the levy would cut into their profits, the government caved. Instead of standing up for the millions of people still living in unsafe buildings, they sided with those who caused the problem. It's a bitter pill to swallow, especially for families still waiting for their homes to be made safe. Even worse, the delay means that the cost of the cladding crisis will continue to fall on ordinary people. Not only are we footing the bill for repairs, but the levy itself, when it finally arrives, will be spread across all new builds, including those from developers who played no part in the original disaster. That means higher house prices, fewer homes being built, and a housing market that remains as unaffordable as ever. It's tempting to think of taxes as someone else's problem. But the truth is, when governments cut taxes for corporations and the wealthy, the rest of us end up paying more, either directly through higher costs and charges, or indirectly through cuts to public services. The same pattern plays out in the housing market. Developers keep their profits, politicians avoid tough decisions, and ordinary people are left to pick up the pieces. Whether it's waiting years for a dangerous building to be fixed or being priced out of the market altogether, the cost of inaction is real, and it's growing. Remember the promise to build 1.5 million new homes by the end of this parliament? That target is looking increasingly out of reach, especially if new taxes are delayed and developers are allowed to dictate the terms. The government talks about no excuses, but every time powerful interests push back, the promises seem to evaporate. It's no wonder so many people feel betrayed. The system seems rigged in favor of big business and against the very people it's supposed to protect. When will enough be enough? The delays, the excuses, the endless debates over tax policy, they all add up to one thing: a government that's more interested in placating developers and protecting its citizens. But it doesn't have to be this way. We have the power to demand better, to insist that our leaders prioritize the needs of ordinary people over the profits of big business. So, what do you think? Is the delay of the developer Levi justified? Or are developers simply getting away with murder while the rest of us are left in the dust? Share your thoughts, spread the word, and let's make it clear: we've had enough. It's time for a government that puts people first, not profits.